let's start this with, I want you to be better than me. If I'm the best guy running a machine, then now we're in an imbalance.
To all the listeners of Skid Steer Nation, it's your host, Ryan Deemer. It is the month of December 2024. I just want to say Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays to all of you. Thank you for all of your support this past year. It means the world to me. I've got an amazing guest today. His name's Evan. He's up in the state of Maryland. He's got just a great life story, both good and bad, some really cool roles he's had in life that I'm excited to ask questions about. And just in the last 12 months, he's exploding his business, taking on a bunch of new equipment, new employees, some new projects, and I can't wait to share those stories with all of you. Before I introduce Evan, I do want to remind you that the Skid Steer Nation podcast is brought to you by skidsteernation.com. It is your place to purchase high-quality, American-made skid steer attachments. So for your next project needs, visit us over at skidsteernation.com. And I also want to take just 1 second. We launched Throttled Up Marketing, I think it was 12 days ago. We've already signed up 11 or 12 clients. The response has been overwhelming. Guys have been extremely excited. The sales calls have been really simple. It's more about talking about what we're going to do, not talking them into it. So for all of you that have signed up so quickly, thank you so very much. If you guys are looking at expanding your marketing and trying to grow your business in 2025, there is no cost to schedule a call and talk to me and see if we're a good fit. I guarantee you there's something in that call that you can use to grow your business, even if we don't work together. Evan Jones, thank you so much for joining the Skid Steer Nation podcast, man.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, man, I don't even know where to start with you, man. I mean, we've got military experience, something about a professional shooter, tech world security information, and now you're playing in the dirt. I mean, I don't even know where to begin this episode.
Yeah, it's been a fun ride. I joked when I was doing my corporate work. I would say all the time, I'd rather be pushing dirt, and looks like that's where I wound up.
Yeah, it's quite a maturation process. I think all guys, especially if they own businesses in this industry, like they've had that itch or that drive to go play in the dirt since they were kids, and it just never left them.
Yeah. So for me, so the way all this started was my family had this farm, and I grew up on it. And it was a functioning business when I was little. Like most people, your family goes through divorces, separations, stuff like that. And there was a pause in it for about 10, 15 years. And like any property that's neglected for 10, 15 years, gets overgrown, stuff happens. So around when I was 19, I started cleaning up the property, and that took well into my 30s for me to get everything done. And I said at the end of it, I was like, man, it'd be cool if somebody did this like as a job. We'd probably get it done a lot faster. And as my professional career matured, I started looking at different avenues and different things. And when I kind of capped out in the cyber industry, I was a vice president of cyber solutions at a cybersecurity company. And I said, man, if this is corporate life, this is the ceiling for basically income and revenue for me, unless I'm the owner of a company. And I'm working 16-hour days as not the owner. So it got to the point where, it just, for me to grow as a leader, as a person, I kind of felt like I needed to take the reins, and the best way to do that was to have my own skin in the game. So that's jumping around in my timeline a good bit. But
you were also active duty in the Air Force, correct?
So I was full time with the Air National Guard from 2009 until 2018. Did a bunch of different jobs. I started out in aircraft maintenance, worked electronic warfare systems, C-130s, moved over, worked on A-10s, did propulsion. And around 2015, I finished my bachelor's degree from just 100% night school. And I was looking for a way to employ that, and an opportunity to commission. That's when I went over to cybersecurity.
Okay.
So we had a cyber mission in our guard base, which is pretty cool. And I jumped over and made that switch.
Nice. So here in Peoria, Illinois, we've got the Air National Guard also, and it's one of the few bases that has the C-130s because there's not many of them in the United States, right?
There's a few of them floating around. We actually, no, it was Ohio. Ohio, we did some work with up in Mansfield.
Yeah.
I haven't had a chance to play with Illinois guys.
A close friend of mine just retired after, I think she put in her 20 years, and she was a captain on the flight crew. She ran navigation for the C-130s.
That's cool. Yeah, they were a blast. Working on C-130s and just the mission, the camaraderie, that was hands down part of the best years.
Yeah.
And like most guys, I mean, it's 16 years now. 16 years, I'm a captain, and it's not as fun as it used to be. It used to be a lot of more fun running around doing stuff, and 2 kids, I'm old, stuff happens.
It's now an inconvenience to leave for a weekend.
Yeah. Now you get up and you're out the door before your kids. And you're like, man, this is just another day that I'm gonna miss that kids waking up.
Yeah. That's, so interesting. It's so awesome that you could leverage your experiences from the military into such a great corporate career. I mean, I know I get that internal fire of like, I'm capped out. I got to go do something on my own, but it's still amazing to look back at that journey to go, wow, the military was able to really provide a lot for me and my family.
It absolutely. There is 0% chance that I would be at this point without having my military service. I mean, it got me a door in with cyber. That got me revenue to start my business. Because basically, while I bankrolled myself to start, like most guys out there, you get a machine, you start, you work weekends, you do some side projects, and you roll it into other stuff.
I think I was watching a video on your social media profile. We had a semi rolling in with 2 brand new skid steers. And then I'm reading you talk about you shitting your pants buying a 2006 for your first machine for like $14,000. And it's like how the world has changed in a short amount of time.
Yeah. So that's actually, I had that thought, because Thanksgiving, I call my Kubota salesman, Justin up at Messick's, phenomenal dude. And I'm like, hey man, so we've got a bunch of work coming up. We're short at the yard. We're running, it was a weak spot this year, not having enough machines. Do you still have those too? He's like, yeah, I think I still have these. I'm like, cool, send me paperwork. Let's get that done. And it was like a very nonchalant experience compared to the first one I ordered, where I'm like sitting there watching an auction online, sweating bullets, like, oh my God, I hope this thing runs.
What am I doing?
Yeah.
What am I getting myself into? Yeah, and now you're throwing away 6 figures. You don't throw away, but now you're throwing around 6 figures.
Yeah.
Like it's a need. It's not a want anymore.
Well, so I think that's part of the maturity in the business part. I look at it and I don't see that I'm throwing 6 figures. I see a weakness in the last year of operation and a stopgap where I can fix that for the next year going forward.
How often do you assess your weaknesses in your business?
Oh, I can tell you where I screw up daily. That's like a.
But do you take time out like at a quarterly or annually basis where you actually just go through and review jobs, or do you do it per job? Or
so I'm pretty regimented with my day and how I break everything out. Normally, when I close out an invoice, I'll sit down and I'll look at the job and I'll make notes of what needs to change, what went right, what went wrong. And then if I need to make a change in my system, as far as pricing, as far as, bid notes, stuff like that, I'll make that revision there, because if I put it off for like a quarterly thing, it's not going to happen. The one thing that I do annually, every year I try to stop working in December, and reassess my social media, reassess looking at SEO, looking at the website, are we promoting the right services? And then as we're doing the end of year tax stuff, that's when I'll sit down and really look at what jobs were profitable, what we should be doing, what we took on that really wasn't right, and kind of where I screwed up pricing things, wrong or right, or either way.
Yeah. That's a great philosophy. And I think that's one of the things it's so easy to get caught in the rat race of revenue that you feel like you're wasting time assessing your business because you're not out pushing dirt.
Yeah. One of the things that I really try to keep forefront in my mind is that, I'm responsible for these guys. I'm responsible for providing for their success, the tools they need to succeed, and the work coming in to keep them successful. So if I get caught up doing something at, I don't want to say the lowest level, but if my task is I'm out in a machine and I've got one of the guys standing next to me, is that the best use of my time that's going to benefit my guys and the company? And it's easy. I love running machines. That's why I started. And it's definitely a pitfall. And I think that's something that, just about every business owner, trips into every now and again.
Yeah, because typically, especially in the excavation industry, I think you start the business because you enjoy the work. And as you grow the business, you realize that you can't do the work.
Yeah. Or you get to do less of it.
Yeah.
But, the cool thing is, as you start bringing guys up, you see where they came into the company and you start seeing their success and where they're getting better. And that's another thing that, I try to really be cognizant of is just having that in my head when I'm interacting with the guys. Like, not, hey, idiot, you screwed that up over here. It's, hey, why'd you do it this way? Let's fix it. This is a way to improve.
Yep.
And I have friends of mine that get frustrated, yell at the guys, throw stuff. I'm like, all right, cool. What did that get you? Is that making things better for next time? Or are you stuck in the same loop?
Right. It's a hard grasp if you've never owned a business before to understand that there's a big part of business ownership that you're like a father figure / coach.
Yeah. If my guys listen to this, I can't imagine the jokes I'm going to get from that. But yeah, that's accurate.
Papa Evans coming in. Yeah. Papa Evans coming in.
Yeah, probably my phone's going to start dinging here in a minute.
Yeah.
No. I was very upfront with each of them. I want to grow the business and I want to grow you guys as individuals. I want to see you succeed. And when we talk about being an operator or running different pieces of equipment, our discussion flows like, look, let's start this with, I want you to be better than me. If I'm the best guy running a machine, then then now we're in an imbalance. Get better than me so you can say, hey, idiot, get out of here. Go play in the books or go, sell some work.
Right. Make sure we got bread coming in next month.
Yeah. Everybody needs, fancy stuff. It's the holidays.
Yeah. What was one of the things? Geez, I have to check this out real quick because it was. I read it and I was like, oh, I got to make sure we definitely talk about that because it was such a cool approach to it. You were talking about, man. No, I don't remember.
Must not have been that cool.
I think it's an expansion of what we were talking about, like, just talking about the lessons from the military, the different challenging jobs and how that's molded you into being a better owner and the mentorship style that you take on. I think I wanted to dig in just a little bit more like of that mentorship or that culture building that you have put in place in your company.
Oh God. So my lead guy, he and I talk nonstop. And I try to keep a good balance of separation of personal life and work relationship. So like we don't go out to the bar and hang out, but when we go out during the day or we go out on a job, then we all go together. We do it as a unit. We'll sit down. I'll spring for lunch. We'll talk about family, kids, whatever. And it really is because in order for me to be successful in this venture, I need their success. And it's kind of two ways. So if they're focused about, can I pay my bills? Then they're not thinking about work. If they're thinking about, I didn't have clear direction, going into this project. Then they're trying to figure it out on the fly. And one of my things that I hammer on with them is I want work to be the least stressful part of your week. And, we want it to be that way, but just by removing some roadblocks, providing clear communication, clear expectations, and giving the support when they need it. I'll get messages like, hey, we need X, like a chainsaw sharpener. Like, hey, we have the files, but this would go faster if we had the plug-in sharpener. Done. Pick it up on your way, tomorrow.
Simple.
Like it's little things like that it does two things. It removes a problem, and it also encourages that dialogue to where if somebody across your team sees an area for improvement, they'll speak up. Mm-hmm. And as my role shifts from being the guy in the machine every day and the guy on the job site to bouncing around and supporting work, coming to and from the job site and supporting as needed. That conversation has to happen if things are going to scale and grow appropriately.
So what we implemented in our business, and I don't remember, I read it in a book somewhere, but basically we started with a very small dollar amount, and as time together and trust grew, the dollar amount grew with responsibility. Mm-hmm. It's like a few of my team members have the ability to spend up to $500 without asking for authorization.
Yeah.
Because it was a bottleneck for me getting these messages like, hey, this shipping's more expensive than it was last week. Is it okay if I ship it? Hey, this is $50. I need this software to edit. I'm like, if you can justify it and it's not a daily purchase, so we just kind of set parameters.
Yep.
You don't need and then the longer they work together, the higher the dollar amount goes.
Yeah. And we, so that was one thing that I started. As soon as I hired somebody, if they're operating a truck or a machine, they've got a fuel card. Mm-hmm. Because, I don't want the job to stop because, oh, hey, boss, nobody left us with fuel. So now we're, standing around looking at the sky. So it's little things like that I try to fix. We obviously spend a bunch of money in equipment. The dialogues come up like, hey, this would be really nice, or what would make this job easier is this piece of equipment. If it's there, I chase it. We do a fair amount of auction shopping. We do buy some stuff new. We've just bought a whole bunch of equipment this last week, as far as semis and other stuff, just to bolster some other parts of the business. But even that. I think that comes from looking at military operations, because I'm looking at the logistics of how we do every step in the process. So if I can send, for example, a semi and keep that in house with a 50-foot deck instead of two guys, now I can mobilize more equipment faster. That shaves a day of running back and forth off, cuts down your overhead costs, even though you're adding another piece, but you do your tax analysis and see if it makes sense.
And that's the thing. Like, everybody talks about wanting a truck or a dump truck, but they don't do that analysis.
Yeah.
They're buying off emotion.
Half of being a business owner, I feel like, is being irrational and having a little bit of faith. So from part of that standpoint, who says I'm going to leave this great job and go play outside and roll in the dirt?
I get it. I twice in the last 2 months, I'm like, we're going to build software. And everyone's like, how much is that going to cost you? I'm like, I don't know yet, but I'm doing it. And I have no business building software. Mm-hmm. I have no background in software development or team management of graphic designers and developers, but I saw the need in the market, and I'm like, we're building it.
Yeah. And that's how you need that. You need that innovation, because that's what drives the whole industry forward.
Yeah.
So I think that's great. We do a little bit of that. We've got an organics yard piece to this whole thing. So we've got our farm. We obviously have a little bit of ag operations. We have this big chunk of offsite work, site stuff, grading, excavation, demo. We do a good bit of forestry mulching. We do property restorations like the one we're on now. We got into it, and it's supposed to be this little 0.8 acre cleanup, clear out some scrub trees, we found a landfill, whole landfill. But that the important part of that is having your contracts written specifically to cover when things like that happen, communicating with your client like day one. Hey, here's what we took out. Here's what we found. This is how it's going to impact the project. And just having that dialogue, building that trust. I mean, that's critical. How many contractors do you hear of that don't do anything? And then they get to the end of the project where they signed it for, say, $500, sign a project for $500, come in and say, hey, we added everything up and we're done now, and your bill's $5,000. It's like, well, how do we get to this point?
Right.
So
that upfront communication is key.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I always make the reference of just for that example, like we give them one price and then things change. Or I always love it in the bidding process when guys like, well, it might take me a day. We might need 4 trucks, not 3 trucks. And I'm like, that's like going to get your oil changed. And the guy's like, well, it's 50 cents an ounce. You might need 100 ounces or 300 ounces. It might be done in 20 minutes, might take 3 hours, and it's $150 to $300. And you're like, I'll go somewhere else.
Yeah, it's kind of wishy-washy. And one of my pet peeves is like the hourly rate guys. I see it a lot on the forums. It's like, oh, this is my hourly rate. This is my hourly rate. I don't know how people shop that way. Like, I
don't either.
Okay.
I don't know how you're comfortable as a business owner all you are is an employee.
Yeah.
You've got a set wage. You can't make any more money unless you work more hours. That's not owning a business. That's owning a job.
Well, I mean, even from, when I've had people shop me against that, and they're like, well, what's your hourly rate for this? Like, I don't have one. Like internal analysis, sure. But, the company at this point has yard operations. We've got overhead. We've got offsite operations. We roll all that up into different lines of revenue and break it down. So if I tell you, my hourly rate is X $100 an hour, and somebody else says, oh, well, they're $75 an hour. Well, it's apples to oranges.
Oranges.
If I come out with 150,000 in equipment, and the guy shows up with a tractor, like there's 2 different levels of service being provided, and so what I try to look at is what the market value of a service is, and then so you have what your market will support, which is like the supply and demand piece. And then you have what your internal numbers are for, overhead expenses, profit, job costs, and to see if it's worth doing. Because that's a big piece of it is, pre-screening customers and then looking at jobs and saying, yes, I want to help everybody. I want to do, I had a guy call me to move 2 piles of dirt in the yard the other day. I want to help you, but if here's one of my guys, call him, he'll take care of it on the side for you. Give him a couple dollars. I would rather send that job that way.
Yep.
Than divert, 4 guys or divert an operation or, pause a project that, requires all of us to move 2 piles of dirt. So
no, I completely understand that. And, it's different as you grow. Like you have to look at the project scalabilities, the size of the projects, the quantity of them, the demand in the market. And it's a whole new light as you scale a business and start adding team members and equipment.
Yeah. And one of the dialogues that I have with my guys is, hey, how did you like this project? Because if I start taking on work that everybody hates, I'm not going to have people. And we did one. It was really cool. It was a boulder retaining wall, natural flagstone patio. And we're not normally a patio company. It was for people that we knew. In past careers, I've built patios, which is why I don't do it every day in this job. But my back hurts enough already. And but the guys liked it. They were like, man, that's really cool. That was fun, but we're really sore. Like, yeah, that's why we're not going to do that, more than maybe once a quarter.
Yeah, that's because it's not sustainable to do it every week.
No. If you're wearing out your people, wearing out your equipment, and it doesn't make sense in the long run, then, that's a failure on you as a business owner. you're the captain of the ship. You got to keep everything going the right way. And if you're making those decisions, chasing pennies on the dollar, then it doesn't make sense.
Right. Nope. That's so true. I'm going to break topic. I just have to ask it ever since I read it. Professional shooter. Was this military based or you on the side?
No. This was military. So I shot for the National Guard has it's called their All Guard marksmanship team. So the National Guard has a joint team. The Air Force has a team. Marines have a team. Everybody has a team, and they compete at the national stage. So I shot competitively for about 7 years before kids came around, and I decided I'd rather play with them instead of laying on a field on weekends.
Did you do like the 3-gun, or were you more dedicated to one style of?
We did all of it, which was a lot of fun. When I say professional shooter, that was pretty much my job, to live on a range outside of my day job hours from April until November.
Wow.
And that was weekends, going away to competitions. We would have trips, obviously while I was full-time with the Guard. We would have trips that we'd go on. A lot of it was instruction. We worked, with kids, young adults, all the way across. When we were at nationals, we would help run the small arms firing school. So the discipline was a high power service rifle. Most of your targets are 200 yards away. Little tiny like pie plate dots, and you're just teaching marksmanship fundamentals. And it was great because these guys come out, and that's a level of instruction that they'd have to pay for a whole bunch someplace else. And you've got guys doing it like for the living, passing those skills on to them. So it was really cool. There was always a good experience with that. And I got some cool medals out of it. There's lots of accolades and things, but the best part was really the guys that I learned from, and really solidifying that mentor thing. Because the only reason I got good fast is because I found people who were good and then latched onto them.
Yep.
And every day, every match I came off the range, I was like, man, I suck. Help me suck less. And that was what we do. We talk about, where you screw up, what other people did. And it was never a mentality of go away, you suck. It was, I remember having those struggles. Let me tell you how I got over it, or let me tell you what works for me. It might help you. It might not. And I took that mentality with me throughout my other military jobs, through my civilian professional job. And I carry that here, even with other business owners that I'm friends with. When they call and they're having an issue, I'm like, look, what do you need? How can I help? Or I'll call them and I'll be like, dude, here's the bind that I'm in. Like, I screwed up. Help talk me through this. Help sanity check me. And it goes two ways. Like, you need that support structure.
You really do. And it's, you hear it all the time that there's nobody in my area that's willing to talk to me because we're competition. And I'm like, you just haven't looked hard enough then, because
that's something that's another pet peeve. Competition's at the bottom, collaboration's at the top. He's turned into my absolute best friend. He and I started working together because I saw he was doing the same things that I was. He was on. I saw his Facebook Marketplace ad for brush hog skid steer stuff, and I messaged him and I said, "Hey man, I see that you are 5 minutes away from me. Here's about where my rates are. I just want to make sure I'm not undercutting you." And that started a whole conversation, and that was probably about 5 years ago. And now, we call and talk to each other 4 or 5 times a day. He helps me on my jobs. I help him on his jobs. And you really, if you see both of us out, there's not like except for my trucks are black and his trucks are white. That's really the only dividing line. Our guys work together. We all hang out together. But I mean, that's what you need. You need that positive attitude and the right people around.
Yeah, it's a common trend I see with having these interviews with you guys on such a consistent basis. The guys that have found a way to collaborate are substantially farther along the line than those that have not.
Yeah. And it's not just direct industry competition either. I have friends that have landscape companies, and they'll call me and say like, "Hey, Evan, I got this job. It looks like a pain. Do you want to give me a price on it, and I'll GC it for you?" Yeah, no problem. Yeah, that's why wouldn't you do that? Why wouldn't you build those connections to have other people who are basically going to hand you money? Like that's
right.
A lead you didn't have to qualify, you didn't have to chase, and you enjoy working with the people. Like that's why we do this stuff, right?
Yeah. It's the power of the network, right? Because you can talk, like you and I are talking one-on-one right now, but at this exact moment, you could have 5 people talking about you in your community and you're never even aware of it. And that could lead to business because you've developed a strong network and a strong community around you.
Yeah. I mean, everybody says like, oh, word of mouth leads are the best. They are 100%. But why stop with, I did a good job for this customer. Why not have, I have this partner in the industry and we work together. And one of the things that I've done with my business is I've looked at our market as a whole, and we've got a bunch of landscape companies. We've got a bunch of tree companies, and there's kind of a gap, and we filled it. It's tree companies when it starts being a whole bunch of trees or there's other stuff involved. It's like, we don't want to work with that. Landscape companies, some of the stuff gets too big for them. They're not normally equipped. So we kind of filled that gap and then branched off to commercial site work. And throughout that, there's been a lot of conversations with guys just like, hey, what are your pain points? Tell me what you do. I'll tell you what I do. If I can ever help you, let me know. And just, mean it. Don't buy it. Like, one of the guys that I work with has a trucking company, dirt yard, stuff like that. He messaged me about something, and I said, yeah, hey, I'm sharing your contact. There's somebody that needs this product that you have. I'll link you to. He's like, oh yeah, cool. I'll get you a finder's fee. Like, nope, don't need it. I'm good. Happy to help. And it's not like like you're better than anything, but if you like working with the guys, you want to see them succeed. You want to see them do good. Like these guys take care of me when I need it for my projects. I want them to kill it out there. Because
there's no personal motive for a finder's fee. I want to help raise you up and
like let's all get after it. Let's all do great things. And ultimately the better service that all of us provide, but by leveraging partners, you can turn into that one-stop shop. Think about the client experience of that.
Amazing.
Yeah. Now I don't need to call 17 different contractors, or you have these guys that'll say, oh yeah, I can come grade it for you. You just order the dirt.
Yeah.
Like, if I'm somebody's grandma, I'm like, I don't know where to order dirt from. How do I know I'm getting a fair price?
I mean, if I wasn't in this industry, I wouldn't know where to order the dirt from because I don't do it every day.
Yeah. I mean, growing up, we had a place up the street that anytime I asked my parents for like aggregate stuff, like, hey, we need some, stone for the driveway, some milling. So like, oh, use that guy. He used to hunt here. Like, okay. As an adult, I find out that guy's the highest price in town for the lowest quantity. I'm like, oh my God, why were you doing that? Like, did you ever? Oh no, that's just who we knew. So,
right.
I mean, that's my 2 cents. Collaborate.
What a dick move too, right? Like, yeah, you're welcome to hunt on our property, and I'm going to gouge you on material.
Yeah, that's there's some unscrupulous characters out there.
Yeah, there are. There are.
Um,
So with you growing your team this year, are you finding a way to like have daily communication touch points as a group or different ways of mentoring to see development quicker than you've witnessed in previous business ventures you've been in?
so in my last company, my employees ranged somewhere between 50 to 70 people. Some of them I talk to all the time. Some of them it was just supervisor, second layer communication, and it really varied. With my guys, the first thing I did was set up a group chat, and I stole that from one of my military commanders in the cyber side a few years back. And he started this chat thing. I think it was like right before COVID. And, there were different channels. It was kind of like on Slack. So there were different channels for different topics. But the byproduct of that was it kept communication up. And, for our generations, it's natural to type something on a phone, especially with the guys I have now. They'll type in a phone faster than they'll call me.
Yep.
So let's remove that barrier. Like the whole thing is remove barriers to do good things. And so I set up that group chat, and as my lead Brandon, as long as he's taking on more, now I'm not separating myself from the chat, but he and I will have a discussion, and I'll let him direct for the morning. Like, hey, tomorrow this is what time we're going, this is what we're doing, and that's for two different purposes. One, it's establishing his control of the job while I'm not there. So it's his while I'm not there, direction flows to him. That starts that way the night before. That's how it is in the morning. There's no question. And the guys all work really well together. We don't have butthead types, but that's part of it. Is you have a clear line of who to talk to if there's an issue. So that's one piece. The other part is I want him to grow as a leader. Like that was part of our discussion when he came on was, I want to see you succeed. Like you'll hear me say that a million times during this. I want everybody else to do good. If I survive, great. So part of that is I need to give him the opportunities to do that. I need to give him opportunities to screw up and to have conversations and just, to shift and go forward. And that goes with him as well as the other guys that we brought on. So he's got our crew structures. When we go out for specialized stuff, I take lead. Brandon comes with me. If we need additional support, he's got his helper. And then we just hired another guy whose primary function is general support. So we have an organics yard on the farm. We take in wood, chips, stuff, grind it up, make mulch, make firewood. So there's always something to do there. And I had to make that hire because I was getting back and cleaning up a yard and making neighbors angry because machines are running at 8 or 9 o'clock and leaves are falling off of trees. So now there's lights and it's not how I want it to be. So now we have a body whose job is to be there in the yard in case something happens, work on making product during the day. And if we need search support on a project, like today I'm here talking with you, they're all out on a project. So it gives us that flexibility to scale internally to do a wider variety of things.
Did you go through a process to see like the production at the farm, whether it be the firewood or the mulch or all that, if it was ramped up to a 3x level because there was somebody there consistently doing it, that the value benefit would pay for the employee and gives you the flexibility to have support, or did you just gut hire?
No, this was a sanity hire.
Okay.
I look at things and I go, okay, what of the things that I'm doing in a day, is this what I should be doing, and what's stressing me out the most? And if getting in a loader to push a pile up so that somebody else doesn't come drop leaves in a driveway instead of in a pile, if that's stressing me out, then that's a problem. So there are bigger things that I should be stressed out over.
Right.
So we brought this guy on. again, good dude. I'm fortunate that as we've been scaling up, we've had to make some corrections. We had a couple guys come and go this year, but the group that we have now really seems to lock together well.
That's fantastic, man. Speaking of like sanity, I think you mentioned that time management is one of the things that, and maybe it's just because you overcommit, but you struggle a little bit with that.
Yep. That is it. That is it.
Welcome to the club, man.
Uh-huh.
Welcome to the club.
Famous words. I'll find a way to get it done.
I think your quote was that your wife calls it Evan time. When you say you'll be home in 5 minutes, it means 3 to 5 hours.
Yep. She doesn't get mad anymore most of the time. Yeah. I mean, a prime example was, Mike and I, the guy that we work together all the time. Sunday, it was before one of the auctions up here. I said, hey, we're going to go. Should be like 3-4 hours. She said, okay, so all day. I'm like, no, we're leaving at like 8:30. We should be back by like 1. I think I got back to the house about 3:45.
She already knew.
Yeah. It's just, stuff comes up. We start looking at things, and you gotta chase what you can chase.
Yeah.
But no, with jobs, I started using the Google calendars. So I know some people use Apple calendars, some people use Jobber, whatever. Before I started this, I was into the Google ecosystem, so that's what I used. And I color code everything, and it lets me give rough ideas of how far out we are on schedule.
Do you share calendars also with the team so they have visibility of upcoming projects? Or on a separate calendar?
Oh, that's too far into the weeds for them. I get yelled at for making them use time clock apps.
Got it.
So if I say, hey, here's our job calendar for the next month, I'm going to get something thrown at me. But no, I do let them know. Normally, sometimes Sunday, I'll say, hey, look, this is what we're doing. And if 7 o'clock rolls around and Brandon hasn't heard from me, I'll get a text that says, hey, boss, what's the plan for the morning? What's the loadout for the morning? And he helps keep me sane there. So, for time management, I'm up every day, sometime between 4:30 and 5 a.m. My dog doesn't sleep, so he wakes me up. And that's my window to try and do any office things before my kids or my wife get up. And even during that time, if I get caught up in something, 7 o'clock rolls around, my wife runs down. She's like, why didn't you wake me up? Like, we had kids at school. Like, I'm in my bubble down here.
You're like, I thought it was 5:30. Sorry.
Yeah, I was like, I'm sitting here, drinking an energy drink at 6 o'clock in the morning. What do you think's going to happen? We're going to get lost
quickly.
Yep. No, another a challenge that we've had this year with when it comes to time management is we take on emergency work. Emergency and priority work. So one of our lines that we have is we work with a couple different restoration companies, and they use us when like bad things happen, fire at a house, tree falls on a house. We do some type of response for that. That will throw a wrench in my whole schedule for the week. So you already have weather delays. Now you have other project delays caused by emergency priority work. And I'll say it's a 50-50 split. It's part of it is emergency rates are good. So as a business, you do want those hours. The other part is that strengthens your relationship with your partners. So if they know that in a situation they can call you and you will make things happen, when it's not an emergency situation, they're still going to call you because you stay forefront in their mind. And that's something I'll break script. If I had a script, I would break it because I want to know about your marketing thing because that was part of the bubble from my last job.
Was marketing?
I owned our marketing division at the old company, and prior to that, I'm
sure you're at a national level, not a local level, so the approach is probably different.
It's all the same. It's all the same as far as I can tell. It's just, are you getting in front of the right people and saying the right things?
Yeah.
So,
So I'm a big proponent of understanding your customer.
mm-hmm.
So I mean, I love building client avatars because people like your customers, if you go back and review the last year of your customers, you're going to see commonalities, whether it be in age, location, education.
Mm-hmm.
So what you can do is you can start bundling them into groups and then just write one single, like what one perfect customer would look like that would fit in that group. And I find it extremely helpful because I can look at that client avatar and figure out where I want to do my boots on the ground marketing, how I want to do my digital marketing. The message I want to say is written for one person because I know it'll capture the attention of anyone else in that group. So
Yep.
it gets me out of that. I don't know what to write, right? I'm like, okay, what does John want? And then I can just start writing for John. And I know it's going to catch that group.
One of when in my last job, when we were doing our build your brand thing, one of the things they asked us to do was shut your eyes and imagine your company. What does it look like? What does it sound like? Imagine your company as a person. So, personify it. And then do the same thing for your client, your ideal client, your perfect client. And your ability to do that, I think, is kind of a direct reflection of your success that you're having in your marketing areas. Like I see on some of these Facebook pages, these guys like, oh, I'm throwing ads out on Google, but I'm not having luck, or I'm putting things on Marketplace. Like, well, who are you talking to?
Right.
And
what problem are you solving?
Yeah. Like what problem? Yeah, exactly. What problem are you solving? And are you trying to solve in the right place?
And I just say it's really a minor, and you've already got it right. I can tell by talking with you. It's a minor mindset shift to understanding that you're not a service-based business. You're a solutions-based business because people are contacting you with an issue, and you have to come up with the idea, the solution, and what's going to benefit them best short-term and long-term. And when you can start looking at yourself and your business as the solution business, not a service business, that's where you can really start separating your value, your market, your brand, your identity from the people that are just going out charging $175 an hour.
Yeah. So obviously we do some forestry mulching stuff and environmental work. And that was something that always blew my mind when I would see mulching companies. Like we're a forestry mulching company. We'll come forestry mulch it for some of these guys down in the South for like $180 an hour, and I don't know how they buy milk. But it was just like, do your customers know what that is? Is it the right application?
Do they know the finished product that you're going to leave them?
Do you know that you're going to have stuff strewn about across your whole property? And, the first time you take your lawnmower across it, somebody's going to die in the house next door.
Exactly.
So that became part of my sales process when I would meet with somebody and they'd say, yeah, I'm contacting you because I want brush cleared. I need some brush cleaned up. And there's a few 3-foot trees in there. I'm like, okay, well, that's a little more than brush. Or they'll ask about forestry mulching to build a house. And I'm like, dude, that's not the right tool. So the first, as part of my pre-qualification, one of the things that I always do is, you tell me what you have your ask. I always let the client speak first. And then I'll follow it up with, what are your goals for the property now? What are the goals afterwards? And then what does your timeline look like? And normally between those couple things, I can piece together enough of a response to determine if they're right for me, if I'm right for them, and if what they're asking is the right thing.
Yeah, and that's the key thing that young businesses have no clue and they struggle with. You're literally interviewing them to see if you want to do work for them, because not all customers are meant to be yours.
Yeah. And, there's some people that hear that, they'll be like, oh man, that's kind of a little arrogant to say, but I mean, it's not. If you're a super budget minded customer and your concern is, can I do this for the absolute cheapest? That neighborhood guy is always going to win. Every neighborhood has one. That guy will always win, and that will be your savior.
Yep, and it's a race to zero if you compete on price.
But that's also not the guy who's giving people days off. That's not the guy supporting other families besides his. So from a business standpoint, it really does need to be the right blend of value that you provide to the value that the customer wants.
Mm-hmm.
And a big piece of that when I started was I brought the professionalism that I had from my other careers to doing this. And I felt like I was cheating because some of the guys that I was bidding against, like there's one guy, one of my early years, I'd call him a competitor. Now he's just a dude in the area. Like he yells out, we guessed wrong. It's going to be another 2 loads of dirt. Like not change order, not anything. Just yells from the bottom of the job.
And he literally said, "We guessed wrong."
Yeah. So, but I mean, like you hear that and you get that feedback from other people, and it's like, man, what an awful experience. If I'm putting out money, and I do it with the contractors that we have that work for us in this industry and in my personal life. If I am asking somebody to help me with a problem, by using their service, there's values that I bring to it. Like, are you going to do it correctly and quickly? Cool. It won't be cheap. Got it. Yeah. Care about those things. There's that triad that the Grant Cardone triangle or something.
It's shit. It's older than him. That's been around forever, right? You can have it quick, you can have it good, or you can have it. What's the third one? Quick, good, and
fast, or what's it? Yeah. Anyway, but yeah. So we try to balance
time, quality, price. Sorry.
Yeah.
Cheap, good, or fast. Pick
two. There you go. So we try to balance that with the customer's needs. We work with some investor clients to where they need stuff done yesterday, and they needed they need it with cost focus in mind. So on those jobs, the standard of finished product is kind of the lower end for us, but it's still better than what they'll get from the neighborhood guy. Mm-hmm. So that's a balancing act, and that was something that I went through when I started working with those guys. I'm like, man, why don't they want to pay this? Like, why should it be cheaper for this person than it is for the homeowner? And it's really not much different than when you work in subcontracting. It's their business. You have to understand their business model, and sometimes we're not the right answer. And that's a discussion that I'll have with them. Is like, look, man, I'd love to help you. Can't do it. Other times, like there's one builder that messaged me this morning and was like, hey, we need some sediment controls fixed and some grading done. I'm like, all right, I already know the answer, but what's the timeline on it? Well, the inspector wants to look at it Monday afternoon.
Yeah.
Monday afternoon, we're going to be in New Jersey. So I said, look, I will do my best. I'll see if the guys want to work this weekend. We'll figure something else out. But, it's being flexible and keeping your client's needs in mind and understanding that the values of, a business that you work with may be substantially different than a homeowner that you work with.
Yeah, and I want to just expand on that too, because it's also being aware of, is it the same person that's always hot 5 days behind schedule? Because then eventually, like, I don't like working with you because it's not a one-off. I'm not helping you out. This is the way you operate, and I got to get the hell out of this ecosystem.
Yeah. And I mean, there's some where, they get it. They're like, look, I need it done. Doesn't matter. Just send me a bill. Cool. I can deal with that. But that's something that you have to factor in and see what your internal comfort level is for your business. But yeah, I mean, it's all, every year's a learning curve. So this
what I love about what we're talking about these last 10, 15 minutes, just to kind of break it down to some of the guys out there that are struggling, this whole process of building your boundaries or your non-negotiables for your business, it doesn't happen by accident. Like, this takes time, like going through who you want to be as a business owner, what kind of business you want to have, how you want to hire a team, and the customers you want to hire. It's not sitting around daydreaming about it. It's like pen to paper, reviewing projects, and changing what you want as a business as you continue to mature.
Yeah. And, in the corporate world, there's a million different courses and projects and bubble sheets and stuff that you can fill out to try and do that. And what it really boils down to is, knowing your own mission, vision, and values, and then implementing that in a way that you're comfortable with.
Yeah.
So at least for me, as I've been going, you get to a certain spot and your gut hits you and you're like, that didn't feel right. I don't like that. Or you'll sometimes you run into a client that, they have a hard, fast budget, and you see a need, and you know that they're not able to spend more than whatever. There's times where we just say, look, we're going to take care of it. We're going to set a not to exceed, like job we're on now. These guys didn't know they had a landfill. It's not their fault. They moved into it. Crappy situation. Will we make a little bit less on it than other jobs? Yeah. But, that's somebody in our community, and part of our, mission, vision, values is we are a community supporting business. So if I can do something that'll help somebody in my community, okay, cool. As long as it's not sending the company backwards, I'm okay with a little bit less.
Yeah. Is this the property that had like 2,000 tires on it?
That was an investor. That was not this property. This property only had one dumpster full of tires. That was wild, dude. That was wild. So this guy calls me and he says, "Hey, I have 1,500 tires," and I'm like, "Cool, not normally our thing." And I called because I knew it was a property manager, guy that owns rentals. So before I even wanted to get involved in it, I called 2 tire recycling places. And I was like, hey, what do you guys charge for cleanups? Because my first thought was, I'm going to link these 2 up and I'm going to step out of this because I don't want to load 1,500 tires. And my guys don't want to load 1,500 tires. And, they gave us the pricing and I'm like, wow, that is ridiculous. And they're like, well, yeah, we can fit, about 1,000 of them in a semi. I'm like, well, this property's in Baltimore. The only access is down an alley. They're like, well, if we have a semi and a box truck, those are the 2 that we need. And if we can't get to it, then we're not going to do it. I'm like, oh man, this dude's screwed. So I had no idea how many we could haul in a day. I had no idea what a fair rate for the homeowner was. So I said, look, this is what my business needs to function. I'm going to pull all of our resources. And we wound up running my hook truck with 20-yard cans, and we ran 2 other trucks with dump trailers that are about 20 yards apiece. And we had an excavator load, and we all hot swapped, like one after the other. And the first day we got about 1,500 tires out, which is pretty good. It was a 30-minute one-way trip from the site to the recycling yard. Okay. And the way I structured it was, this is what I need to basically for my company to operate, pay the guys. This is what my trucking costs, and I'm going to give you the exact receipt from the disposal place. And that was my comfort zone for how I wanted to handle that. I said, if it goes an additional day, this is what it costs the second day. This is what trucking costs. There's no changes there. It's a total unknown. Like there's not a good formula for the cone of tires to figure out how many tires it is. But I mean, it wound up being something like $5,000-$6,000 in disposal.
Just the disposal fee.
Just the disposal.
Wow. Which
adds up quick. And I think when I saw the pictures, I was like, there's no way it's that many. It's probably like 1,200. No, I was wrong. It was like 2015 or something, which is nuts.
It's wild.
We packed in those cans. We took the excavator and we packed them in a tight. So nobody loaded anything by hand because it's a swamp fest with just water and stagnant stuff sitting in them. Anytime it's a property cleanup, I don't want my guys touching anything.
Yeah.
You never know what's there. So we just had the excavator load one after the other, stuff them down into the can. I think we got 250 in one can, which is pretty good. Yeah. That was a little heavy on the truck, but no, that did good. That did good.
Oh, the things you get called for when you own a service-based business.
Yeah. Yeah. And the things you encounter. We had a foundation that we got called because the original contractor digging the foundation started pulling logs out of the ground, and they waved off. So I had this builder call, and he said, "Hey, can you give me a price on what it will cost to dig this many feet down, fill it with stone and geofabric, and then they can set the foundation on that?" And I said, "Absolutely not. What I can do is I will tell you what our rates are. I will give you pricing on stone from my guys with trucking included, and I will work at an hourly rate with your soil engineer standing over my shoulder to make sure that we do this right." Because just from experience, if you're pulling organics out of the ground, there's other stuff in there. And this house was 25 by 40 foot maybe. And the hole that we wound up having to dig, we had to put 350 tons of stone into.
Wow.
But that's why I wanted the engineer there, so he could look at the soil with us, because what Evan's gut feeling says might not be the right thing. So that defer to people smarter than you, and charge, be fair with people, but charge what your costs are. And that's where it really just comes down to knowing your rates, knowing what it costs for your business to operate, and be at the profit margin that you're comfortable with.
So I hear all the time from guys. I talk to more guys that don't know their numbers than I do that know their numbers. So just because of your approach to owning a business, I'd just like to ask you, what number, like, where do you begin if you were to start all over to figure out your operating costs? Like, what are the key areas of the business that you would focus on first?
So when I started, I was a dude with a skid steer. So I figured if the area that I was in was charging at that time, I think it was like 150 an hour for dirt stuff. It was like 150 an hour for dirt, 180 something an hour for some type of attachment, like brush deck or soil conditioner, stuff like that. If those were my rates, and that's what the market could get, then I sat down with a spreadsheet and said, what's it worth to me to go out for a day, and where do I draw that line? So I set up minimums. I still have minimums. And if it's below a minimum, I'll defer them to somebody else that I know, or I'll ask one of the guys if they want to do it on the side. And it's nothing against anybody else, but I can say, nope, sorry, we don't want it. Or I can qualify a lead for somebody that I know can do it. So I'd rather pass that.
Back to that service versus solution.
Yeah.
Just because you're not the right solution, you're still providing a solution to that customer by finding the right contractor for them.
Yeah. And if somebody refers you that way, then the conversation starts entirely differently. For the next guy, it's not, hey, do you do this? It's, hey, I heard that you can take care of this for me. So that sale is halfway made.
Right.
So, and that pays dividends in the long run, because that guy, and one of the things that I talk to guys that are in that spot, like, look, man, if you need help with something, let us know. If you get into a project and you think it's going to be too much, let us know. There was a local guy who he was renting a bunch of equipment. I talked through pricing with him. I talked through, some of his approaches. He's like, oh man, it's really cool that, you'll do this and you'll share it. I'm like, look, man, I didn't have anybody do it for me. I had to figure this all out on my own, and I'm still figuring it out. I mean, this week I underbid the crap out of a project. not because I wanted to. I just,
Right.
I looked at it and I think everybody else put, obscene numbers on it for a state thing. And I looked at it and I was like, all right, cool. This is my formula. This is what I think it's going to take. Let's get it. And that was a learning curve for me. And that's an invaluable experience. I could sit here and say, oh, cry about it and be really upset. But now it's okay, cool. That's work that's coming in. Pain's a great teacher. So we're going to feel some pain on this one, but
the best.
Yeah. But it'll teach me to look at things better the next time.
Yeah. I could ask you right now, like, hey, what's the best estimate you ever did that you made the most money? You'd be like, man, let me think about that. I got a couple I could probably think of. And if I said, what's the worst estimate that you lost the most money? You'd be like, it was July 7th, 2022. Like you don't,
Yep.
it's ingrained in your brain, man.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a couple of those jobs where you just look at it and you're like, man, actually it's funny. One of my buddies called last weekend and he's like, hey, we just saw a piece of wood at this property. It looks like somebody mulched here a bunch of years ago. Was that you? And I was like, what's the address? Oh, I lost my ass on that one. That was the first one. That was the first one. I thought it was going to take me like 2 days to finish. I was there 5 days. I underestimated my equipment. I underestimated my production. But the value of that was it gave me the data points to say, this is what I can do. And I knew going into it that I was probably over competitive. But at that point, it was my first time doing that type of work with my equipment, and I had no data. So you can go on Facebook and ask people, or you can go figure it out.
Right.
And at that time, it was fuel. My overhead was fuel, me, and insurance.
Right.
So,
I say this it's kind of bluntly, but I'm like, man, education ain't free. You might not get a placard to put on your wall, but every time you underestimate, just put it in the education bucket because it ain't free. And
I mean, it goes the other way too, because if you overprice, that has the same results.
Mm-hmm.
So you're losing revenue. You're being a little bit too, maybe too zealous, or you get your quantities wrong. And you're like, man, how did that guy get that work? I thought it was going to be this much. And that's a great teacher too. So one of the things I try to do is I look at historical data where I can, where the projects align, and I try to learn and adjust off of that. Like, was I low? Was I high? Was the market low? Was the market high? And then where does that fall with my numbers? And is it worth it for us to do that? Or should we be doing other things?
That's a big one too, is if you can be truthful with yourself, like, is this the right work for us? Yeah. Are we efficient enough to be profitable at it?
Yeah. I mean, I work with a decking company. They do hardscape stuff like that. I do not try to sell hardscapes at all. I defer 100% to them. And the owner and I are great friends. And that's the discussion is, look, dude, I know how to build them. I can build phenomenal hardscape. It will take us twice as long as your guys.
Right.
And the end product will look the same and be equally as good. So why wouldn't I send that way? And in return, they call me for all their demo stuff. They're like, look, we don't have guys that run bigger equipment. You make our lives easy. You can show up for a day. It will take us 5 days. Please come in. We are happy to see you.
Right.
And again, it's that relationship where in the end, the customer wins.
Yeah. And I see it, just to be an example that these guys listening can really dial into, but I see it most drastically with like septic systems. Mm-hmm. If you do a system from time to time and maybe 2-3 a year, and it's just something that you offer if a customer needs it, you can say bullshit all you want. It's a 3-day process. But if you do 3 septic systems a week, more than half of those are in and out in a day.
Yeah, that's one I'd be completely ignorant on. We don't touch it. We don't get involved in it. You want foundations? I'll lay out a foundation and dig, faster than I'll get out. We can do that. The same thing for clearing projects. Like people look at us. They're like, so what do you think? This will take like a week and a half, 2 weeks? Nah, about 2 days.
Yep.
What? So, and part of that's, we structured the equipment. We spent more money on buying equipment that had a higher production rate, without going horsepower crazy to where we have the same breakdowns as the guys running stupid high horsepower stuff. Which is, so like I run Kubota stuff. The cats are great, except if your arms are up, you can't open the door. That's something that me and the cat guy fight about. They've got a buku horsepower, and I've got friends that run them, and they have blown off a bunch of holders on their mulcher heads from hitting things. And when I hit something, my head stops and I go back to work. So part of that's a business decision. It's not, I'm going to get the biggest, baddest machine and go cruising through the woods. It's, is this the right machine for the type of work we do, for the material we encounter? And is it, is the capability right?
Yeah.
So
if you talk to a guy that does nothing but forestry mulch, like, and that's all he does, mm-hmm. I'm going to guess it's a 50% chance he's a diehard ASV guy.
Maybe. Or, right. If that's what he's doing.
But it's like specific equipment. And if you talk to a guy who all he does is push dirt all day, 50% chance he's a Takahauchi guy.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. We, so years back, I was a Toyota technician coming right out of college. And I just kind of equated Toyota and Kubota to be about the same. Just from the experiences that I've had with their engines, with their systems, from a mechanical standpoint. The performance is good, but not top tier. The breakdowns are significantly less than equivalent. And, so if I have to look at it as long-term purchases, or for the duration that I'm going to run the machine, every day that it's down costs me money. It's headaches, and it damages your reputation when you say, hey, I want to do this, but my machine's broken, or hey, there's another delay. And this year, we've had breakdowns, we've had stuff happen. And my biggest issue this year has been delays that were, again, results of emergency work, weather, and just opportunity. And we have, there's a couple clients that are still on the list from, early fall, because, we looked at jobs in the spring, they call back in the fall when we're already, 6-8 weeks out. And they're like, hey, I'm ready to start this. And I'm like, cool. It's getting to that part of the year where I'm going to do my best, but I think this is how far out we are. And I always tried to keep a longer backlog. And this year, with some of the growing pains that we've had, as far as changing staff, training guys, taking a little bit longer on some jobs just to have that education time, stuff ran long. So we're like right now, it's great. We're an equipment company. We do site work, and we are scheduling in February, which is
phenomenal.
Which is great, as long as it doesn't snow or freeze or rain for the entire month.
Yeah. So you've added obviously firewood and processing materials. Is that material that you're taking off job sites and bringing in, or are you allowing people to bring that in?
A little bit of both. Okay. So one of the things that I do, like I don't carry an LTE, a tree license. I have guys that I work with that do tree licenses, because I can take down a tree, I can help rig a tree, I can push a tree over. But if you ask me what species it is, what fungus is growing on it, what other stuff, I am not your guy. So
that insurance ain't cheap either.
Well, yeah, that's a piece of it, but moreover, it's back to the quality of service that you provide. So when it comes to tree work, I have a couple guys that I work really well with, and we all ran into situations where we're like, man, it's the weekend or it's after hours, I've got a full load of stuff, and as part of our ag and farm plan, I'm allowed so many square feet for composting and processing.
Okay.
So we went through the right state agencies, we went through the right county processes, made sure all the T's crossed, I's dotted, and we started up this little yard predominantly for us as a convenience to us. And over the years, it's added. We've got people coming in, and one of my guys sells firewood on the side. Like, that's his thing. I'm like, great, congratulations, you are my new firewood salesman. You already have your book of business. You already have what you do. This is easy for me because I don't have the time to call and schedule 15 different deliveries.
Right.
And he does it after hours. It works out great. Like that is in sense of the firewood side, hats off to him. That's the reason that happened.
When I saw that, I was like, I love the mindset of finding, even if it's just a couple $100 or $1,000 here and there, I love the mindset of finding new revenue streams through processes you're already doing.
Yeah, it's not passive. If you want to lose lots of money, make big pieces of wood into small pieces of wood. That is the most expensive part of anything that we've touched. But again, none of that, the yard wouldn't happen, the firewood wouldn't happen without the relationships and partnerships that are built. Because I started this as a one-man band, and half of the stuff was happening with, my buddy would buy a machine and I would buy a machine, and we're like, hey, if we put these together, we can make this product. And we're working through it. And as I have time, I put time into it. As they have time, they help with it. And it really is, rising tide raises all ships.
Right.
And that's where I'm trying to keep it is, we're able to help other people. We're able to work with our partners, and that's a win. Like, that's a win for everybody, namely the clients, because now, how many estimates do you have people on here where they're like, I was out on an estimate and they asked me if I knew somebody that did this. Yes, got you covered. Here's the guy. Here's what his pricing is. Do you want me to add it to your quote for you? Yeah, could you do that? No problem. And that takes a degree of trust to be able to sell for other people. But imagine that from the receiving side, if you're working with people and you get a call and you're like, hey man, just made a sale for you. And you have that relationship built to where they know your numbers, they know where you need to be. That, again, qualified lead, sales that you didn't have to pay for.
Yeah, and the hardest part is getting on a piece of property. I swear by that, right? So if you're already there and you're not the right guy, then sell it for your friend or your counterpart that is, because there's no guarantee he can come back, that they're going to bring him in. Yeah.
Yeah. And, if I can set it up while I'm there, done. Like one change that I made this year was I felt like a goon, showing people maps, holding up my cell phone, pointing at it. Like, oh, don't worry, I got your property line. It's right here. And like, here, let me zoom in. It's like, that's not something that I want. So I switched to, I added an iPad. So now in my work truck, I carry an iPad. And now I look like a goon because I have no idea how to use the thing, and the apps change and stuff like that. But, but when we do stuff and we're talking about property lines, I can draw boundaries. I can say, look, my at this much an acre. Here's what you're looking at as a rough total, just to give you an idea if this is something you want to do. If somebody says, well, yeah, I'm thinking about that fence line too, or I'm thinking about adding, a shed pad over there, whatever. Cool. Let me draw it up for you. And that's something I stole from a friend of mine's business.
Investment in technology, especially in today's age, it's a necessary evil, and it seems costly up front, but in the long run, you're miles ahead. Like that Mosier, that little thing you can buy for marking properties, and it does topographical maps, and you can print. It's like $900. And I know guys like, I'm not spending $900 on that. And then I see the guys that buy it, and they're like, I can kick an estimate out in 0 time flat. I know exactly what the takeoff is. I know exactly the acreage. And it's like the amount of time I save.
Yep.
on the back end.
Well, even like building estimators that use the lasers to map out a room.
Mm-hmm.
Walk up, click, done, room acceptance.
It's made real estate agents look competent.
Yeah. If any of my real estate agent friends see this, I love all of you.
Yeah. Well, you remember the days you'd always be there and they're like, can you hold this end for me? Then they're trying to measure it and write it all out.
Oh yeah. Nowadays, nobody can even read a tape measure.
Now you don't even know they're doing it. They're just walking around like click, 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 click.
Yep. Yeah. No, with the Mattermost stuff, or was it Matterport? Matterport is the 3D modeling.
Yeah, the 3D. Yep.
That's huge. As technology that really helps sell stuff, that is huge.
Mm-hmm.
Think about it. You're home, especially, COVID world where you can't go out and look at stuff. Here, I can click through a whole house, do a street view for the inside of the house.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. And my wife's industry in the restoration world, they use it as part of their documentation for job stuff. You walk up, set up the tripod, go, bounce around, do what you need to do. And you've got full job site documentation in one visit.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Super cool. That's the one thing I hate about the outdoor photos. They're so damn hard to make good looking before and afters that actually tell a story. It's like my pet peeve of the excavation industry.
Yeah. It's hard to say. I made a hole and now I'm done.
Yeah.
So that's the cool thing about doing like the clearing side. It's very obvious that there's two different things. And I think that's one of the things that drew me to it is, when you work in government space, the average job completion time is somewhere between 18 months and never. So to be able to come in a day and see production, like, oh my God, look at what we were able to do in a day. It's awesome. I think that's definitely what puts me more towards the property restoration side. Aside from having to live it and, knowing that like helpless feeling of just looking around, like, I have no idea what to do with this. I don't know where to start. If somebody had found me at that point, or I knew that there was somebody that did it, I probably would have done, backflips to have them come in and do it for me. So that's a unique one where, I've been on the client side, and I think that's helped pretty significantly on the sales side.
It does make a difference. And it's easy to associate it because we are clients 90% of our day, right? Mm-hmm. We're a client at the gas station. We're a client at the restaurant. We're a client at the clothing store. Like, what do you expect for service? That's what your customers expect.
Yep. So, I didn't think that I would enjoy going as far into the marketing piece. And I know in the corporate world, that was like this mystical overhead expense because we didn't understand, ROI for it. And the more that I looked into it and the more that I did research about it, like I'd say probably 3-4 years ago, I didn't even know what SEO was. But understanding how the websites are built out, understanding how traffic analytics work, and then being able to piece stuff together to know how to rank properly, and just present in front of the clients. I mean, that was huge. And I saw it in tech and cyber, and that was a really hard one to present because everything's intangible,
right?
Like as a business owner, if somebody came to you and said, Ryan, how secure is your networks?
Yeah, you're selling fear.
Yeah, you either you're selling fear, or there's no like, okay, cool, I've bought a thing, I have this tangible stuff. It's all, well, what if the bad stuff happens? So to get people to want to invest that, and none of it's cheap. You really need to do a lot of client education from that industry. On, look, we're not trying to scare you, but this is the world that we live in. These are the vulnerabilities that exist. This could be the potential impact. Let's help you reduce that risk. Because we can either accept risk or mitigate it. And, let's try to bolster your business so that you can focus on going and getting money and boosting revenue, and not staying up at night going, oh crap, did that password get leaked?
Right. I consume so much knowledge from like books and videos and magazines, because I'm just ever growing, right? I'm always trying to expand and grow. So I can never remember where I learned something. But I remember a guy talking about like SEO optimization, and I've stole it and I use it all the time today. But I'm like, he goes, listen, Google don't give a shit about you. Google only cares about the person on the other end of the keyboard searching for something, because if they give them a good experience, they will continue to come and search for things.
Yep.
So the more trust Google has in you, in your business, i.e. location, the optimization is the services, the value, all of that they're comfortable showing you to them, and then they give you a review. So it's just guaranteeing Google that, that was the right mix. That's all you're trying to do, is make Google happy. Don't worry about the customers. What does Google want? What do I need for Google to show me? And it's like a whole mindset shift. I'm like, God, that makes so much sense. Like, we're not Google's customer.
Yep. So that's about what I did. So, talking about, is there a time of year that I go through things? Again, wintertime is when I try to do my deep dives.
It's my favorite time.
Last winter, I went through and I was like, you know what? I need to adjust some things for the website. And I burned the whole thing to the ground and started over. And in how I wrote things when I started, it was very much, let me sell you on what I do. So if you, customer, read this, you're going to get warm fuzzies, and you're going to call and be like, dude, that is the guy. I want to talk to him. And when I redid it, I did it with a focus on what, exactly like you said, what does Google want to see? Or if somebody types in, what does X cost? What does forestry mulching cost? What does excavation cost? I want to build a house. What is this? I would work on pre-building those answers into my narratives on the page, so that as everything got, as the bots crawled it, that was somewhere in there to start giving me that ranking. And I think it's even more so as the AI stuff's come about, where it gives you here's your suggested answers, and then the little link next to it.
So that used to be called Google Snippets, where they would take a snippet of the most relevant information from a website at the top. And now they've just replaced it with Gemini, but they still link the website that they're pulling the AI, that they're analyzing with the AI.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, and again, some of that comes from the cyber side, but not a whole lot. In the cyber world, it was mostly, offensive work that I did.
Yeah.
It was never infrastructure build out. But you had to know it in order to break it. So that's kind of how I dove into it. But again, invaluable skill. And if you're going to do anything in today's market, you have to invest in the terrain that you're going to present in. And the websites, the Facebook, the social media, the reels or shorts or whatever content you put out, that's this world's version of yard signs from 20 years ago.
It is. I still think yard signs are awesome, though.
It's one thing we haven't done yet.
I'm telling you.
I have them. I have
pick one service, one phone number, small logo, easy to read. Pick, again, do the data analysis of your customers. Like, all right, it's forestry mulching. We've done most of it on the west side of town, and just go scatter them around there.
Yeah, no, it's on the list. Fortunately, I mean, we stay fairly busy with a mix of paid advertisement and organic leads.
Do you do most of your paid, or is it a mix between Facebook and Google, or where are you investing for your paid ads?
So in our area, it was hard to get Google to look at what we were doing, because most people, for the type of work that we were doing, didn't understand their problem. So Google would recommend us for tree work or recommend us for landscaping, but never the right area. Everybody who messaged me, even when I was doing paid stuff on Google, any inbound lead that I got was organic. Like, hey, I Googled, I found your site. it was never an ads click. So my analytics for it was showing that, it presented to a bunch of people, but it never got that click conversion. Facebook has done well, but with Facebook, I can dial more to the person a little bit more with the type of advertisements that go out, and we try to make the content to where you don't get tired of seeing stuff. So we make it a little bit different. We'll put funny stuff out. We'll put some things that I think are neat out. Like I do our video editing. My guys are flying drones now. Like we try to make it fun for the guys and for us. They're not in New Jersey, so it's not those drones. That is not us. Before anybody says that is not us. I don't want to get caught on that one. I'll get called into an office I don't want to be into.
Right.
But I mean, but that's what keeps you in front of people. And just because, a client or a potential client, customer, suspect, whatever you call them, just because they don't need you today doesn't mean that they won't need you tomorrow, in a couple years. You just don't know. Like I've had referrals from people that I haven't even done work for that just follow the page.
Because they follow you on social media.
Yeah, they follow it on social media. And I tried, because I had kind of this dual life for a while where I was in cyber stuff and I was wearing, suits and fancy clothes to go to work. I kept me out of content. I think this is the first thing that'll be on the internet with my face in it tied to Dundee. But I tried to make it about the work that we do and try to make it mildly entertaining. My wife yelled at me. She said, "Your videos are too long. No one will watch them." So I made them shorter and shorter until it kept her attention long enough to where she could give me feedback without walking away. And that's when the videos started doing better. So, all
See, guys, the wives are always right.
Yeah. No, that is it. I would not be here without my wife. We both.
It's very important to have a strong home and a very supportive partner.
Oh yeah. I mean, she runs her company. I do this one. We try to support each other wherever we can, but if I need to use somebody as a sounding board, like that's her. And, when guys tell me that they're like, oh, my wife's going to yell at me about buying this or buying that. Like, well, she either doesn't understand your business or you shouldn't buy it. It's one of the
right.
two. And, like that's when I called her and I'm like, hey, bought a tractor trailer the other day. She's like, that's neat. And go about conversation.
She trusts that you've done the due diligence
to
justify knowing what you need it for and how often it's going to work.
Or
the ROI on it.
Or I've bought enough crazy stuff over the
last you just wore down.
It just slides right under the radar. Just like it'll be something else later.
Yep.
But no,
I'm blessed with my relationship because she's not the greatest sounding board because she's in the medical arena and online stuff. It's not her thing. Right. But she gives me the space to work on my business and I don't have that pressure, or that stress, or that nagging added to the pressure of the business.
Yeah. Well, we actually flipped. And I joke with her all the time. So she was in her company. She was an office manager. And I'd say, oh, we put the nice leggings on to go to work today, did we? Because it was normally like a sweatshirt and yoga pants or something. So I was doing the fancy corporate stuff. And then I said, enough of this. I'm going to go roll around playing the dirt. So now I'm in crappy clothes leaving, and she is, driving the bus on her company. So she's dressed up fancy every day, hops in her fancy truck and goes to work. And, I put on the muddy work boots and run outside. And, it's
role reversal.
I sent her, oh God, what was it? It was a Saturday Night Live skit, where they're making fun of the guy who has the super hot wife. And he's like the really nerdy guy. Anyway, I sent that to her the other day. I said, this is probably what people think when we pull up somewhere.
When we pull up together.
What did this guy do? But when I was in the corporate world, she was my sounding board then. And
Mm-hmm.
as I was, I would have situations that came up and I'd say, hey, Steph, what do you think about this? And we talk through it. And as she's progressed in her career, it goes both ways. It has been a partnership since day one. And, we both support each other in the best ways that we can. And I couldn't operate any other way.
Right.
And, like you, I have the freedom to run my business and the support, even if it's just, not yelling when I, miss a dinner, or, hey, I have to take a call and run out.
Right. It makes a big difference.
Oh, it's huge. It's huge. I do not think that I would exist without it. I'll put it that way.
No, I agree. Man, we better cut this off before it turns into a Joe Rogan podcast.
Yeah. What did I say about being long-winded? People left 45 minutes ago.
No, man, they're listening. They love. I actually, we did the first time we ever did an episode like an hour and a half long. I was like, we're way over time. I might go ahead and do it. And all the feedback was awesome because they're in a machine for 8 hours.
Oh yeah. It's
right. It's like they love the longer form content.
Yep. That makes sense.
Yeah. So, I mean, if we could do 3-hour podcasts, I think half of our audience would be excited about it. Well, I don't think I would. That's a lot.
No, you got to build some bathroom breaks in. Get some paid advertisement in there.
I don't have the bladder of President Trump. Did you see that? Joe Rogan's like, we talked for 4 hours. He never peed. It's like, he never peed.
The story.
Like, no way he's not wearing Depends. Like,
the stories that you hear about people's interactions with that guy.
Yeah.
He's a wild dude. Whether, politics aside, just the one-on-one interactions that people share about, their experiences with him, it's cool. It is cool. Some of the stories you hear.
No, and this goes, anyway, I try to leave it out of the podcast because I don't want to offend the one liberal, because I can't imagine a business owner in excavations like jumping for Biden and Harris, but I could be wrong.
You never know. You never know. Everybody's got their views, and respect all of them. But and really, Evan, and not we're off topic. I think it's a great life lesson, right? Mm-hmm. It's okay to have different opinions, and it's okay to express those in a calm way, and to listen to the other ones and agree to disagree. Oh yeah. I know we're over. I will say before, just on that note.
Oh, we can go as long. I was just like, we're going to turn this into a Rogan podcast.
One of the let's do it. We can call him in next time. One of the experiences that I had with that, when I was in Iraq, I was working directly with the Iraqi military, and half of it was just wanting to understand their culture and their experiences, and they wanted to know everything about us and what we do. I mean, like, there was one guy there who comes over and he shows me his picture on his phone. He's like, have you seen this? Have you seen this car, like where you are? And I'm like, yeah. He's like, oh, one day I'm going to have this. And it was like early 2000s, like Dodge Charger, like the ones that we would see like with the big rims and but he's like, oh man, like that is it. Like that is my dream. And so, I would say prior to working in, international arenas, you kind of have a polarized view of what the rest of the world's like.
I was just going to ask you, do you feel like you've learned more about life and yourself from your international travels?
Oh my God.
Just from,
I don't know.
I would say my education really started when I was traveling internationally for work.
I think it opened my mind to a lot more things. Because I've always been on like the right leaning side of things. I'm a gun guy who grew up on a farm. I mean, how much more over there do you want me to be?
All you gotta do is be from Iowa now.
Yeah. Just go play in a cornfield. But what was really interesting was there were so many like stereotypical things that you'd hear about other cultures. And when you get there, it was just an enlightening experience to find out that we're all more similar than we realize. Mm-hmm. Which sounds crazy, but that was my experience. Was there was one day where, like when we did all of our culture training for Islamic faith was during prayer time, you do not walk in, you give them their space, they're going to do their thing. And there was a day that I came back and I'm like, oh, they should be done by now. And I opened the door to the office that we were all operating out of. And there, everything is laid out on the ground like it was prayer time. And these dudes were kicked back with their feet up watching TV. And when I opened the door, they like their eyes popped out of their heads. They're like, shut it, we're going to get in trouble. I'm like, oh my God, you guys are like a bunch of bad Catholics. Like you're just like everybody over here. And they're like, we get 5 more minutes if they think everybody thinks that that's what we're doing in here. So, but again, that was my experience. That's not how everybody's thing was, but it was funny to see like that same level of mischievousness, is there because people are, for lack of a better term, people.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I traveled to Russia numerous times and everyone's like, oh my God, Russia. And I'm like, man, the propaganda machine's done a really good job over here in the United States because those are the most proud, professional. I mean, they drink a lot, but they have a lot of respect for their countryman. They were very accommodating. And I'm talking from downtown Moscow where there's 30 million to the little region of Kaluga where you're pissing in an outhouse because there is no bathroom at the restaurant, which is in the lady's house.
Yeah.
So we were like across the gamut, right? And the people were the same. They were just like, I loved going to Russia because of the people of Russia.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was really cool. Each kind of place that I went to, and even as you go across the U.S., you see different sides of people. You see, culture in the South is different than the North. Like I'm in Maryland. We're a very blue state. We're a blue state, but if you go 20 minutes one way, there's nothing but Trump signs lining the roads. And 20 minutes the other way, it's nothing but pick your, blue Democrat candidate. So, it was really eye opening for that. And the one other experience that I had a few years back, I did the iMentor program, which is where we were partnered with a high school in inner city Baltimore, and we would keep in contact with somebody from their junior year, end of sophomore, into junior year, all the way through their first year of college. And the whole idea was to help, get these youth, somebody that had some life experience that can guide them through, that phase of life. And it was mainly mainly academic focused. But in talks with people, you start seeing what everyday life is, and that was kind of eye opening too, just for how different the messaging is for some of these kids versus some other kids. And so some of the messaging at the inner city schools was, you don't have to do anything, you just have to fill this paper out, and you've got
they're taught.
And I said to him, I was like, man, that's wild. He's like, well, what do you mean? He's like, I just, have to fill out a form and I'll get into college. I'm like, that, the school that I went to, I got told you better bust your ass on these tests or you're not going to get into college. So I think, just the messaging being there is very different. But, anytime you get into, microculture or backgrounds or ethnicities, people come so emotionally charged.
They do.
And we all have blinders on the topic and, and internal biases and everything else. But just the opportunity to experience, being in some of those environments and seeing what some of those influences are, it makes you a much more well-rounded person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my friend he's a principal at a high school now, and out of college he did his internship at an inner city high school. And he came over and he's just like, I've never in my life been more shocked than I am today. I go, what happened? He goes, I was sitting around and I overheard 16-year-old girls at lunch planning when they needed to get pregnant by so they could have a baby the day after they turned 18 so they could get on state assistance.
That's wild.
But that's taught. because what 16-year-olds going into the website of the state of Illinois and looking for what assistance is available for single mothers?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's taught.
Yeah. That's an interesting one. Yeah, I know so during COVID, we did a lot of, I don't want to say like cultural training, but there was a lot of open discussion. We had people come speak, and this is more on the military side of the house. And a lot of those were really interesting, just in hearing the different backgrounds of other cultures and what their experiences were like coming up. And I mean, I don't have any exciting quotes from it or anything, but it was just the chance to stop and listen to somebody else's life and say, like, wow, I can't imagine, like, if some of those things happen to me, I would have a pretty spurned outlook on humanity too. But I mean, I was a troubled kid. I gotten my own share of stuff and straightened myself out as an adult, but I think that's one thing that makes me a little more sympathetic towards it is the times when like at home, I was always told, do the right thing. I had great parents. But out in the world, the circles that I was in, there weren't really positive influences up until I found my way into the military. So who knows where I would have gone if I went the other way. But, just imagine if your whole world is a negative influence or just less than positive.
Right.
What does that do for your ambition or where you want to end up in life?
Yeah. And you can see it, right? You can tell. It's easy to tell someone who grew up in a home that was either belittled, like not believed in, or just ignored. Mm-hmm. Because that was the worst thing to happen to this world was that damn Nintendo Game Boy, because it was the beginning of self babysitting.
I don't know, man. Old Nintendo 64 is pretty cool.
Well, I thought they were badass, but I'm saying for civilization, like it began like there's 2-year-olds out there that can rip through an iPad and find whatever they're looking for.
That is true. That's something my wife and I talk about as far as like parental controls and stuff with the kids. And it's really, you really don't know what they're exposed to. For us, like at least we had dial-up. You had to wait like an hour before a page would load. So
we just talked about this the other day. Like remember the lines would come across the screen, one pixel line at a time. Yeah.
But I mean,
I was like 16 and it popped up. We had the computer in the kitchen and my dad turned the computer on and it started scrolling those lines down and all I hear is Ryan. It's like some naked girl. I'm like, oh God.
Yeah. The access of information and even the stuff with TikTok, the stuff that I see on there, like half of that, you could be scrolling through looking at recipes and then another topic pops up right in front of a kid. There's no censor buffer or anything. So I think it definitely adds to the challenges of being a parent in today's world.
Yeah, and it's the peer pressure of it, right? Because there's always going to be the kids that get it at a young age. And then all the other kids are playing catch up in their mind. Like, oh, well, Molly has it. I should have a cell phone or I need a Snapchat account.
Yeah. My son did ask that. The last 2 years he's asked for an iPhone. Last year was an iPhone 15. This year was an iPhone 16. And I said, yeah, you can absolutely have one when you have a job and transportation and need to have a phone. He's like, well, so-and-so has one for after school when they need a ride home. I'm like, well, that's cool. Does the school have an office? Oh, yeah, great. Go on in, dial a phone if you need a ride.
Yep.
Like, no.
Let me get a Sharpie out and I'll put it on the inside of your folder. Mom's cell, dad's cell, that's grandma's cell.
Call somebody and somebody will answer. And if not, just stay where you are. We'll find you when we get there. Yeah.
I think to me, I don't have children, but like the justification of, oh, we have to give our kids technology so I can get a hold of them. I'm like, where did that come from? We didn't have that. I mean, I can remember many times walking a very long distance because mom forgot to pick me up or was busy with my brother. And
I think that's just like a part of the world now, because back then there was no, short of a pager. And my childhood was pre-pager, at least before I knew about it. And, so I think part of it is we're in the state of constant contact. So we expect that our children need to be the same way. And then, you see all these awful things on the news and TV and about, kids getting taken and all that stuff is very real. So it's a very real threat. The one thing that we do have is we got an Apple Watch that when he goes about in the neighborhood, he wears his Apple Watch. So at any given time, I know where he is.
Yeah.
And that was one where we were very, very against it until all the kids came over one day. And one of the other kids, like, his watch rings, and it's like, all right, come home. We're like, that's cool. It's like a shock collar for the dogs, but you get one for a kid. Like, that is neat. We need one of those.
It's like a shock collar for the dog. Oh man, that's funny.
So I told you my biggest challenge during this was going to be not looking at my phone, and my phone just went off.
No, you're good, man. You're good. I actually have to set mine out of reach because I keep getting notifications, but I went through a phase where I was so always responding to anything, everybody, and I found I didn't get any work done. And I went through this period where I'm like, I'm only going to check email. It was very hard. Like, I'm only going to check email once a day. Like, nothing's that important, right? And if it is, they'll call me.
Yeah.
I'm to the point now where I check my email once a week.
Yeah, I think when you're tied to that sales cycle and you're that like single belly button, I think that's where it comes from. If I don't reply to somebody, it's like, oh man, they forgot about me. So it's you try to as best you can, and at this point, if I don't reply, it's because I ran out of daylight or I'm face down on the stairs because it was too long of a day.
I used to be OCD about those red dots on my phone. I didn't want any of them.
Mm-hmm. Don't
the notifications on the apps.
Yeah, don't look at my mailbox right now.
I've since changed. Like every app's got. I'm like, it's not. That's an hour of my time to clean that up that I could be used doing a podcast interview or coaching or who cares?
Yeah,
it's no longer a priority.
Yep.
So. Well, man, speaking of priorities.
Yeah, we almost hit that 2-hour mark.
Part of me is like, screw it. We got 8 more minutes in us. Like, how cool would that be to launch a 2-hour podcast? And the other part's like, oh, let's make them upset. Like, oh, it's only 1:53.
No hindrance to me. It's this one's actually the wife asking questions about the evening. So that one is important. That trumps all client and employee questions.
Yeah. So, guys, if you enjoyed the episode, we're going to link Evan's business Facebook page to the show notes. So that way, if you want to send him a message or tell him thanks for his insight and opening up and being a part of the podcast, I'm sure he'd love to hear that. Evan, I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation more than I thought I would. And I was really looking forward to it after the last couple of weeks or so, connecting with you and reading and learning about you. So thank you so much.
No, I appreciate it. It was my pleasure. And, this was a great experience. Thanks for having me on.
Man, that's awesome. Well, guys, happy holidays. Merry Christmas, whatever you celebrate. Enjoy your family and friends. Take a break. We work to spend time with family, not to avoid them. So make sure you remember that during this holiday season, guys. Until next week, take care.